Now, the problem I have with these discussions is that they handle these topics in a fragmented way. There is a belief, I don't know where it comes from, that there is one problem at one time. In the 1960s, in the universities, they were talking about what they called integrated rural development. And that went on for many years. Integrated rural development. Then later on, they started talking about education. Education. And then later on, they started talking about something called sustainable development. So I tried to say, what is sustainable development? Nobody could give me the ingredients of sustainable development. Now, recently, they have been talking about individual topics, women issues. Some years they say women. Then they migrate from that one to children. I think the correct way is to handle these topics comprehensively, to find out a minimum package that will create impact. What is the purpose? If you are talking about Africa, that is. I hope you are talking about Africa. If you are talking about Africa, the aim must be to cause socio-economic transformation. The European societies, and more recently, the Asian societies, have undergone socio-economic transformation. I don't hear those words in this literature, in these documents, which I always go to. They talk of sustainable development. So I ask the question, how can I sustainably remain a child? If somebody remains a child sustainably, will that human being survive? We say there's something wrong with him. Because the child must go from childhood to teenager to adult. That means you have two processes going on. Quantitative growth, the child is growing in size, but also qualitative change. At some stage, quantity must translate into quantity. You must go from childhood to teenager, and from teenager to adult. Otherwise, you are not viable. How can you be LDC, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, but you are sustainably so? That means there is something wrong with your physiology. And we must look at that physiology. And it's not surprising, because we have seen in the last 600 years how Europe has transformed. We have seen it. Society is changing from one form of social organization to another form, a more modern form, a more rational form. Even by the time of the French Revolution, 200 years ago. You said this is a keynote address? What does that mean? How many minutes do I have? Huh? 10 more. Oh, okay. Even by the time of the French Revolution, which is 200 years ago, the European society had a certain structure, which you can check again if you want to do some revision of your history. You had the aristocrats, you had the middle class, you had the working class, and you still had the peasants, what we call peasants, at that time. If you go to France today, you will not find the peasants. They are no longer there. You will not find the aristocrats. You will find mainly the middle class and the skilled working class. Now the question is, why is Africa still not having a predominant middle class and a large-scale skilled working class? So if you're talking about governance, good governance, please don't just talk about elections only. That you have elections every 5 years and you have observers from Europe who come to observe what they don't understand. That's not good governance. Good governance must be comprehensive. And since you gave me 10 minutes, in my 50 years of observation, I'm excluding the other years when I was observing but not very well informed. So these 50 years are really when I was observing and very well informed. I have seen 10 bottlenecks, which are the problem. So if you are talking of good governance, you may have to address these 10 bottlenecks. There are many. I don't think I can cover them now. So I think I should just select 3. But there are 10. The 3 I would like to mention, one is infrastructure. When they were talking about rural development and those models of development, somehow they would not emphasize infrastructure, especially electricity, the railway, good roads, the ICT backbone. And if you go to the internet, you will see that problem. There's something they call kilowatt hour per capita, the amount of electricity each person consumes in a country. African countries have got very low kilowatt hour per capita, all of them, except South Africa and Gaddafi's Libya, before Gaddafi was killed by some people. The second one is, of course, that one, I think there is no contention. These groups, the international groups normally talk about it. This is the human resource development. But within Africa, there is another crippling bottleneck. And this was the fragmentation of the African market by colonialism. Now, the final one, that one is not contentious, but there was another bottleneck which maybe I should not go without mentioning. There are 10 of them. I've now mentioned 3. But the fourth one, here in Africa, one of the problems was interfering with the private sector. That was also another big mistake. Interfering with the private sector, either by policy, like in the case of Idi Amin, when he expelled our Asian entrepreneurs, or by corruption. Good governance must lead to socio-economic transformation of the African society. And in order to do that, we must identify correctly the bottlenecks. In the Bible it says, you know, I'm also some sort of Christian. It says they left undone what they ought to have done, and they did what they ought not to have done, and there is no truth in them. I thank you and I wish you good luck.